What's up, guys? It's Tony Tone, the Chess Salcedo. Guys, today we're going to talk about a very, and also very important aspect of the game of chess. What am I talking about? I'm talking about pawns, pawn play, pawn structures, pawn formations, all about pawns, how to create weaknesses in your pawns, structural weaknesses in your opponent's camp, and vice versa. And if you don't understand this, I can't stress this enough, man. So many people, especially beginners, they don't understand how important pawns are. Just because they're small, they're foot soldiers, they're worth numerically 1 point. They are completely underestimated in the game of chess. It was Andre Philidor, a philosopher from the 1700s in France, I believe, who said that pawns are the soul of chess. Boy, how right he was, because the longer I play, the more seasoned I've become, the more experienced I've become in studying this game for decades now and playing it, and just completely, devoting all my time to this passion that I have for this game. You just see clearly how pawns are so crucial and important in this game in so many different positions, from the opening to the middle game and the end game. And I'm going to show you a bunch of examples here of different pawn structures, pawn formations. You're going to learn how to identify them. You're going to learn how to identify structural weaknesses. You need to know what a pawn structure means, what the pawn structures, why they're important, and what structural weaknesses you can find in your opponent's camp. What is the difference between open and closed positions as well? Okay, you're going to learn how to spot structural weaknesses in your opponent's camp, and you're going to learn to exploit that and take advantage. So, the person in chess who wins the game, especially as you get better, is the one who knows more, the one who studies more and understands what they're doing versus the opponent. This of anything that I'm going to do, of all these videos I'm creating, this is top 1 and 2 in the importance of pawn play, pawn structures, and pawn formations, in helping you defeat and checkmate your opponent. So let's talk about some different pawn structures. I'm going to talk about pawn football, a little game that I use to teach kids to learn how to understand and identify different pawn formations in the game as they're playing it, with so many pieces, on that board. So I'm going to take here, I'm going to flip the board. Let's put some pawns here. I'm going to give you some pawn structures, pawn formations. We're going to learn how to identify this. So, when you see a castled king, and the king is right here, right? This is a castled position. This whole little box right here, right? All these squares. Well, these 3 pawns in front of your king is called a pawn fence. A pawn fence. It is so strong. And the minute you open that fence, you're creating weaknesses in the position. Whether you open this one or this pawn or this pawn, you're creating weaknesses in the position. Why is this important? Excuse me. Because this controls this square. This one controls this square. This one controls this square. This one controls this square. Look at all this protection around your king. I can't stress this enough. You only open the gate, this fence, your pawn fence, when it's absolutely necessary to do so. Any other time, you keep that baby closed, and you learn how to use it to your advantage. So let's go through some other things here. Let's get rid of the big pieces. We're mainly talking about pawns. All right. If you see this here, this is a pawn chain. And the weakest link to a chain is its base, which is right here. So if you have something attacking the weak link of that chain, that's what you want. You can't attack the front because it's too strong. It's protected by this. This is protected by that. This pawn chain is great. And the longer you have a pawn chain, the better. That basically means that you're taking up more space in the enemy position. The further you push pawns up the board, the more space it takes. And space is a major type of advantage in the game of chess. There are so many different types of advantages: time, tempo, initiative, material, space, tactical, strategic. I can go on. But space is one of the biggest advantages you can have, because if you could take away real estate from your opponent and space that you control in his camp, man, your chances and your odds are going to go up that you're going to win that game. There are no guaranteed wins in the game of chess like life. It's you're making these little incremental steps to try to gain advantages that pile up over time that get you to a checkmate position. Excuse me. So the longer the chain, the better on any color. Look at this. I'm just taking up more space in the opponent's camp versus him. So this is a pawn chain. Obviously, this is a longer chain, which is a beautiful thing. This is hard to attain, but if you can do it, do it. Typically, they're about 3 pawns only, or even 2. This is a pawn chain. All right. So, and just a reminder, you mainly attack. There are rare exceptions where you attack the front of a pawn chain, which is very strong. Rare. You always go after the weak. If you notice, when a lion is in the wild and he's going after a gazelle or something, he doesn't attack that big gazelle. He's going after the baby, the teenagers, the small cub. Yeah, they can take the mother out. I hate to get all, primal here, but it's the same thing. You attack the weak part of your opponent's structure, pawn structure or formation. All right, so that's a pawn chain. This is called a pawn island. This is also very strong. Again, you're not attacking this baby here. You're attacking these over here. All right? This here is called a pawn diamond. This is extremely strong because you can't really get to the base of the chain. So imagine this pawn island right here. I mean, this baby is strong. And you're going to have other pieces, protecting the weak spot, which is the very back one. Man, you can get this. This is beautiful. All right. So now I'm going to show you. So I got my cell phone on here, guys. So I have to put this on Do Not Disturb. Sorry about that. So we're going to do what's called a pawn majority and a pawn minority. What does that mean? So, for example, if black is here, right? Right now the pawns are equal. It's 3 versus 3. Equal. But what if black has 4? He has a pawn majority because he has one more pawn than his opponent, which is a pawn minority. Right? So you're going to use this to your advantage to try to create what's called a passed pawn. A passed pawn, I cannot stress this enough. It is one of the most important things you can accomplish if you can in the game of chess. It is like, imagine molten lava coming down a volcano onto a small town. What do I mean by that? What a passed pawn, you're going to see what I mean by my little volcano example here. Your goal as you're playing the game is to get any of your pawns to the opponent's first rank, his back rank. Think of it as a touchdown in football. Black is going this way, white is going that way, right? So whoever could get one of their pawns, which is a rare feat, to that promised land, that is a passed pawn. Why? A passed pawn is this. Watch this, how cool this is. A passed pawn is a pawn that has no opposing pawns on either file next to it, adjacent to it. So it's basically free to get to the promised land. If this pawn was here, it's no longer a passed pawn, right? Why? Because eventually him and I have to meet each other. And one of us is going to take each other. Whoever first gets there, he takes me or I take him. But it's not a passed pawn. Over here, this is great, but let's say he's here. This is completely a passed pawn because nobody on the side is opposed to it. I'm talking about another pawn. If you have a knight stopping it, let's say there's a knight right here, actually, you're not going to go there because he's going to take it. But that doesn't count as a passed pawn. It has to be that there are no other pawns, opposing pawns, on either side, either file, either column. All right. For black, this is a passed pawn as well. I'm going to show you some games later on where we're going to learn how to recognize different pawn formations, structural weaknesses, and pawn structures in an actual game. So let's talk about another pawn. It's called the isolated pawn. Isolated. What does isolated mean? Alone. Alone. Like no one is protecting it. So he might be passed, but he doesn't have any of his buddies on the side helping him on his journey trying to go up. If I go here and then here and then here, look, we're helping each other. This is called a connected pawn, a connected pass pawn. If this pawn were here, they're connected pawns because they're all connected and it's a beautiful pawn island, but it ain't passed because this guy is still in his way. Or let's say he's over here. Eventually, we have to meet. So my goal is to maybe, hopefully take this baby out so I can create those passed pawns, right? And if they can help each other, great. But an isolated pawn is when all his buddies are far away and there's nobody on the side. So even if there was a blockade, this is called a blockade because he can't pass me, I can't pass him. We cannot eat each other or capture each other. Remember, pawns only capture diagonally, right? If this queen is here, you could take him diagonally, and then he's free to go forward. But these two are isolated pawns because they have their buddies are not are not next to them on either file. This guy might have two over here, and then white might have two over here and another one over here. But it doesn't matter because these two are isolated. And if there's nobody in front of that pawn, white or black, let's just take this one out. This is an isolated, but it's a pass pawn, an isolated pass pawn on its way to the promised land. Okay, now we're going to talk about a backwards pawn. Guys, this is all going to make sense once I start showing you actual games, and we're going to recognize all these pawn formations. So when you have a pawn like this, remember I told you this is a pawn island? Black is coming down this way, right? This is a beautiful pawn island. And if I put this here, this is a pawn diamond. And the weakest point is the back one, right? Let's take this one out. And now this guy is behind his buddies. So he's a backwards pawn. And again, you want to attack a backwards pawn. Why? Because it's weak. So if I continue moving forward and boom, boom, look, I'm attacking this pawn. If I remove this pawn, these two are now isolated pawns and they have no help because they're not even close to each other. So I don't know what other pieces here on the game, but just recognize that these are now isolated pawns. They're disconnected. They're not connected. Connected pawns are great. Let's say it was here. These are connected pawns, which is this tiny pawn chain. If I create a longer one, this is a great pawn chain, but this is the base of the chain that you want to attack to start removing that strong pawn structure. Okay, so we talked about pawn minority, pawn majority, pawn diamond, pass pawn, backward pawn, pawn chains, pawn islands, an isolated pawn. I want to show you another set of pawn formation called doubled pawns or even tripled pawns. This is a rare thing in the game of chess, but sometimes your opponent is so strong and he ends up putting you in this tripled pawn position or this doubled pawn position. This typically is bad. There are rare exceptions, excuse me, when this is actually good, but it is rare. It's a rare thing. In most games, this is a very bad thing. Why? Let's say you had your little pawn fence over here. Remember we talked about the fence earlier? And now somehow, this guy was here. It's your turn. Boom. Now you disconnected your pawns. You have no pawn fence, and you created a double pawn situation for you on the same file, which is subject to attack, the front or the back. Either one. They're both weak. Again, this is the majority of the time. There are exceptions to this, but it is just a rare exception. And just like in life and in chess, there are exceptions to every rule and principle. It's knowing when to break what rule in what position, or what violate what principle. It's really tricky. That's when you really start to become good at chess. All right, so we talked about everything: double, triples, pawn structures. What they basically do is they help you determine goals and concrete plans, tactical or strategical goals, to help you gain an advantage to get you to checkmate in any phase of the game. Because when you play chess, you're playing three games in one: a beginning, an opening, a middle game, and an end game. And all three phases of the game have their own principles inherent in that phase of the game that you have to understand. This is why, man, understanding pawn structures and pawn formations is so important, because it will determine a lot of plans that you're going to be making to help gain advantages, which is what you want. All right, so we talked about all of that, and now we're going to play a little game called pawn football that I came up with. I don't know who else does this, but I do it. I've been doing this for decades, especially when I teach kids. I teach adults as well. And that's basically this. This is really cool. We start this up here. Let's get rid of all this. You take a chessboard, you put it on your table. I'm not talking about online or on a computer or software. I'm talking about over the board play only. You're playing with somebody right in front of you at home or park, wherever, studio, and you're setting up pawns only. And what are you doing? Your goal in this game is, think of a running back or a receiver in football, and you're trying to get that receiver or running back to the end zone. White's trying to get here to the end zone, and black is trying to come here to his end zone. Whoever gets any of these pawns, one pawn, two, whatever, to that side first, the opponent's back rank, wins the game. And what you're doing is, this is a great little visualization, tactical, pawn structural visualization that you're going to use when you actually play real games, when the board is full of pieces and it's hard to visualize. So watch this. White goes first. I'm going to go here. Let's say he goes here. I'm just going to make random moves, but we're going to spot all the pawn formations that we talked about, and somebody's going to win this game because somebody's going to create a passed pawn. Creating a passed pawn is like getting that running back to the end zone, that receiver to the end zone. You're giving him the ball, and they're running it, and they're trying to evade all these tacklers to get to that promised land. This is the same concept, but what you're learning to do is spot structural weaknesses, spot pawn formations, good or bad, create weaknesses in the opponent's camp structurally with their pawns to try to find openings to get to that damn end zone. So I'm going to go here. He goes here. I'm going to go here. He goes here. We're going to see. I'm going to go here. How this develops, he's going to go here. Now, if you start seeing this, you already have a backward pawn right here, a backward pawn right here, a backward pawn right here, and a backward pawn here. For him, he has three, like a little pawn fence in the middle of the board. Excuse me. These guys haven't moved yet. So let's see how this develops. I forgot who went. So I think he went. So I'm going to go here. And I'm stopping him from moving forward. This is called a blockade. He can't move forward, but neither can I. We're stuck like Chuck in a rut right here. So now let's say he moves here. And now watch this. This is called a pawn break. When there are opposing pawns close to each other, separated by one rank. Somebody says, you know what, screw this. I'm going to take a risk. Somebody's going to take a risk, and they're going to just go all in, and boom. They're going to create a pawn break in the position to create some sort of weakness or an advantage for them. Let's see how this plays out. So if we visualize this in our brain, can't touch the pieces. You have to do all of this in your brain. He takes, then I take. If he takes, then I take. Now we're creating a pawn blockade here. But at some point, this pawn needs to move. If he does here, or he hops here, I can do what's called en passant. And you can watch my video on en passant, which means a French term, which means in passing, which gives me two squares close to the end zone. Excuse me. So let's say, let me see where I was. Let's say he doesn't take and he moves here. Now you see, look at this pawn chain, beautiful. This is a little pawn chain, but two backward pawns. This is a pawn chain, but this is a hanging piece. What does hanging means? And anybody says, oh man, your bishop was hanging, your knight was hanging, oh man, your pawn's hanging. That means that piece is free for the taking. Nobody's protecting it, and you just take a free piece off the board, which is a material advantage for you. So if he were to do that, I can either take him or I can move forward. So let's decide. Let's say I take him. You're playing all this in your brain. You can't do this in with actual touching the pieces. You have to work everything out in your brain with all these pieces here. He takes. I took, then he took. So now we got a blockade, and eventually these guys are going to run into each other. So let's put him back. Let's put this pawn right here, and this pawn back. All of this, guys, is going in your brain. You're literally, this is very, very tricky, man. This is why this game requires a lot of study, more than you play. I literally play about 20% online, and whoever I can find in real life over the board, and I study 80% of the time. I've been doing this for decades. All I do is study the games of the greats, the grandmasters, anybody else, past and present, and you start to gain insight as to how they think and what it is you need to learn. You must study this game like you study, for an exam in school or something, constantly to become good at it. Anyway, so let's say he does nothing. He could actually leave it there and just move something else. So he does this. But then let's say I take, then he takes. Now, I want you to see this. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4 versus 1, 2, 3. Typically, this is good for white. Why? Because I have a pawn majority. That means one of these pawns might break through and get to the end zone before he does to mine. It depends on who's closer to their end zone versus the other. This is very tricky, guys, but it's a great game to understand and learn what to do. So we're going to go with this here. And now I believe it's he moved here, so it's white's turn. So let's say I move here, and now he moves here. Let's say I go here and I challenge him. If I were to challenge him, he takes me for free. Let's say he takes me. Now I'm creating doubled pawns, which is a weakness in his camp. And now I have a pawn majority, 2 versus 1 on this side. So let's go with that. The problem with this is he messed up because he ended up putting his pawn can't move forward at any time, because if he does, this guy is 3 steps away from the promised land. So now let's say I move here, and let's say he moves here. So if I were to do this, I lock this up. So let's say he moves here. He wouldn't move here because he's giving away a free pawn. He cannot move here because if he moves here, I take him and then I'm home free. So if he were to do that, I go. Let's say he goes. Then I take him in again. Look at this. I have 2 passed pawns. Why? Nobody's opposing me at all. So guys, I'm not going to finish this. I just want you to give you a good idea as to what pawn football is, what is the purpose of pawn football, how instructive it is, and how it helps you learn about pawn structures, finding structural weaknesses in the pawn formations, how to take advantage of them. So let's go through a few games here. I'm just going to go through, I don't know, some of my old games, and we're just going to see Bronx 27 Chess. Guys, if you ever want to play, I am Bronx 27 Chess on leechess.org, one of my favorite chess sites where grandmasters play, one of the best chess engines in the world, and of course chess.com under the same name, Bronx 27 Chess. I play all the time, on and off. I teach, people on there. So if you ever want to play, just hit me up and I'll play. I'm a maniac. I can do this all day, every day. So let's go through Bullet. I just played a game here earlier today. Let's see if I can find this. View all games. Here we go. View games. Let's just pick a game. Let's just pick this one. And let's go to the beginning. And we're going to identify some pawn structures, some pawn formations, and then we're going to be done with this video. Because I just want you to see how things develop. So I go out e4. Already, look, he's creating a pawn blockade. Why? He doesn't want me to move up. Because if I move up, then I'm going to stop his knight from developing. So he says, nope, I'm going to meet you in the middle right there. Boom. So now I attack this pawn, which is hanging. Any piece that's free to take is called hanging. Imagine you go to Walmart and you walk out with something free that they let you. I mean, that's not cool, right? It's good for you, uh, but you might get in trouble. But you don't want to give anything away free and in the game of chess and anything without some sort of compensation back. So let's see what he does. Boom. So he protects the pawn. I cannot take it because then I'll lose it. So let's just go fast forward. I'm attacking this pawn. I'm saying, what are you going to do? He takes me. I take him. He's attacking this pawn. Why? Because this pawn is now hanging. So I have to protect it. Actually, I took him. He can't take me because he'll lose his queen now. So I'm not going to get more into this game, but look what I just did. The reason I did that, well, I taken this knight. Look what I created, a structural weakness in his camp. What do you see? He doesn't have a pawn fence, and he has doubled pawns. So now, this is great for me later on to try to exploit this area, his queen side, which has become weak because I just created a structural weakness in his pawn formation. This is how you're going to start thinking, guys, as you get better and better and better to try to spot structural weaknesses and create them for your opponent. I'm going to keep forward. So I want you to see this. This right here is a blocked double pawn. This is a backwards pawn, but it's also a pawn chain. So this is strong because it protects this front pawn. Excuse me. We're going to continue forward. Forget about the actual game. I just wanted to see how these pawns develop. Okay, now look at this. I take him. So now this, he got rid of the doubled pawn by taking my bishop with this pawn, not this one. So now look at this. Boom. His double pawn situation is no longer, which is great for him. However, he has a weak backwards pawn here, which is subject to attack. It's like that stranded deer or, baby cheetah or gazelle, and his mom and dad is somewhere else, and he's just all alone, which sucks. This is a great little pawn island, but these two are the weak points in this pawn island. These two are backwards pawns. So I take it, check the king, and look what happens. Remember I told you about this pawn? I not only take it, but I attack the king. He's in check. He blocks, and then boom, I get a free 100% massively huge, important rook for free on top of the free pawns. So I got 3 pieces for nothing in return. And now he loses. Well, actually, something else happened later. But anyway, I want you to see the pawn structures. Look how nice mine are. I haven't even moved these. Look at my pawn fence. I have 3 here. This is a nice little flat pawn island. He has an isolated pawn. Remember we talked about isolated pawns? Here one's right there. So this could be attacked. Look at this. I have a double attack on one pawn here. So again, now he loses another pawn for free. So now he has 2 isolated pawns in his army, in his camp, that I'm going to eventually try to exploit. So I'm attacking a pawn which he's defending for now. But you don't want big pieces defending your pawns. You want your pawns defending the big pieces. This is something you're going to learn later on as I make more videos about intermediate play, advanced play, things like that. So, guys, if you see, look, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns, and he only has 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm up 2 pawns. That's a material advantage. I have a better pawn structure than him, and he has 2 really bad, horrible, isolated pawns in the middle of the board, just an open space here that's open to attack. So I can't stress this enough. Look at this. He just lost that isolated pawn, and on top of it, I got a free pawn again, and boom, I'm attacking his queen. He can't take me. Why? Because it's protected by the knight. So now he's down another pawn. So, guys, I can go on and on and on. I could show you a billion different games here. Excuse me. But you get a sense, a good idea now as to what pawn play is, what pawn formations are, how important it is to the game, how it will help you with identifying and spotting structural weaknesses, pawn football, pawn structures, how important they are. And, I want to show you one last thing, guys. Open and closed positions. So let's pick another game here. In the game of chess, I don't know. Let's just pick this game. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. The pawn structures that you guys use will define whether you have an open or closed position in the game. Closed positions are good for knights because they can hop over everything. Open positions are good for bishops, rooks, and queens. But if you can keep the game closed, that yields certain advantages, and vice versa. So, all right, did I see this game already? Let's look at another game. We'll go way down here. I'm just randomly picking anything. Okay, I want you to see this right here. This game right here, just I don't even have to go anywhere else. This is a closed game. You have connected pawns, little pawn chain on both sides, and they're blocking the files. Everybody has to go around these squares. I mean these pawns, because the middle, anytime you blockade the middle of the board, the two files in the middle, the D and the E file, or even the ranks, the fifth and fourth rank, that is called a closed game or a closed position. So if you notice, this knight is attacking this pawn twice, and it's only defended once. So at some point, he wants to take this here. I can't do it here, but he wants to remove the closed position and open it up. Why? Because he has the major pieces, the big dogs, the queen and the two rooks that are great in an endgame in open positions. So just recognize that, guys, that this is a closed position. All this blockaded, thing, files creates a closed position, and it's an advantage for knights, but not bishops because they have no scope and no range. An open position is the exact opposite. So if I go back here in this game, actually no, let's go to a different game. This looks pretty open. This is open. This ain't closed. Look at this. Isolated pawn. Isolated pawn. It's 3 versus 2. This is very open right now. Nothing is blockading the middle of the board at all. So this is great for who? That bishop. It's the only bishop. So look at this. It has all this scope to roam everywhere it wants. It controls so many squares. This is great for queens, rooks, and bishops in any open position. Anyway, so guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I know this is kind of lengthy, but I wanted to really, really ingrain in your brains just how important pawn structure and formations are, pawn play, the understanding, the knowledge you need to understand how to identify, spot, and create structural weaknesses with against your opponent and exploit them for an advantage that will lead to an eventual checkmate. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, guys, rewind this, go back, study this, study, because really, if you don't get the foundation, the foundational aspects of chess, you can't just start playing and learn some fragmented understanding of this and that. You have to learn all this beginner stuff, learn this and make this your foundation to build upon, so you can later create even more strategic and tactical opportunities for you. And we're going to talk about tactics, which are awesome, in another video. But without this foundation, man, that house is going to fall. Without a strong foundation, that building is going to fall. So I hope to create that for you guys, so you guys can become better chess players by studying this and whatever other source you guys use to learn chess. I'm happy if you guys come to my channel. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you can. This is the Chess Salcedo. I'm also on Instagram under chess_Salcedo. And hope you enjoyed. Tony Tone is out. Peace.